September 2021 marks 2 decades since the infamous War on Terror was declared by US and Europe. This war on terror has actually been a war on Islam, where millions of Muslims have been massacred under the guise of fighting the extremists. The efforts of these Western nations has been to force their values on the Muslims and to try and demonize political Islam and those who view Islam as a complete way of life. And they've done this by launching huge propaganda campaigns, banning certain groups, forcing women to remove their hijabs, intimidating Muslim children in schools, and labelling anyone who disagrees with them as extreme, radical, or fundamentalist. Not only that, but this war on Islam has exposed the undeniable fact that the Muslim world has rejected Western democracy. And because of this weakness in their way of life, the West have decided to use force against the Muslim population instead of fair dialogue and debate. So they invaded Iraq, tried to impose democracy, failed. They invaded Afghanistan, tried to impose democracy, failed. They supported and funded atrocities all over the Muslim world, but they still failed. But they didn't stop there. They're even able to get the leaders of the Muslim countries on their own side. So they support Bashar when he drops barrel bombs over Syria. And they support Saudi in arresting the sincere scholars and westernizing the school curriculum. They support the Gulf states in opening nightclubs and pop concerts. They support Egypt and Pakistan in accepting the occupation of Palestine and Kashmir. These tyrants are part of the war on Islam, and they have been allies with the West from the very start. If the last 20 years has shown anything, it's that secularism hasn't even worked for the West, let alone the Muslim world. Within this time period alone, the West has faced 2 economic recessions, a huge increase in poverty, failure of the UN and the IMF, the inability to deal with racism, widening of the wealth gap, lack of climate concern, and a whole host of other issues. A filthy hand is in no position to point the finger, and the West must solve its own problems before stooping into other nations' affairs. This war on Islam has exposed the West, their weakness, and their inability to solve problems. It has caused an increase in the Muslim Ummah to learn and research their deen from a political perspective, and it has led to a stronger conviction in the mind of the Muslims that the implementation of Islam via the Khilafah is the only route to achieve stability, peace, and prosperity that the Muslim world has been seeking for over the past few years.